Welcome to Pigskins and Pageantry, a podcast dedicated to all things SEC football. My name is Wes, and I'd like to invite you to join me, Jesse, and Matt each week as we discuss last week's games, news from around the league, make predictions for the upcoming games, and much, much more. Did you hear that? Because I believe I can hear Knoxville all the way down here. We'll talk about why very soon. What's happening, everybody? Just stepping outside of my shoes as a Georgia fan and the inherent nerves that kind of come with that this week. Like, what a time to be alive as a college football fan in general, right? So, like, not one, but two divisional slugfests in one weekend. This time of year is always insane around the SEC, and we're here for it, right? Right now, we welcome a fan of one of those teams in the West. And just to be clear, it's not LSU. Welcome, Jesse. How's it going?
You know, I'm feeling good. It's been a restful bye week, something that was so needed, to calm the emotions, just to make me feel better. Had a lovely Halloween. So I'm here for it. And we'll get to next week. But for now, we're enjoying the rest. And happy late birthday, Nick Saban. Yes. 71 never looked so good
on Halloween, nonetheless. And Matt, so conventional fandom says we're supposed to hate each other this week, but I'm not taking the bait. I'm not doing it, my friend. I just hope both of our teams have fun. No, I'm just kidding.
Fun.
Seriously, man, how's it going?
I'm going to go ahead and warn everybody. You may want to take your headphones out. You may want to turn the dial down. Things are about to get a little loud. We're number one, baby. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Feels like 98. There, I got that out of the way. Oh, wait. Here's one more for you. Okay, I'm done now. I can go back to being neurotic and worried and stressed. So there's that. Aside from the inherent nerves about this weekend, I'm good. Like you said, me and you will not hate each other, Wes. It does not matter.
It's not gonna
Our
happen.
friendship goes deeper than fandom. I don't hate my friends that are reasonable UGA fans. So I can let it slide for a week.
For those who are not reasonable, the hate runs deep.
Oh, listen, there is a deep well of hatred, vitriol, and all sorts of other descriptors of just.
I'm not even gonna lie. You two are like the only two from the Tennessee and UGA fandom that I actually enjoy as people.
Yeah. Well, I love it because, like, you know exactly who people are talking about. Like, you have the people who are the reasonable fans that you can get along with, but then everybody, you know that person in your head right off the bat.
Person?
Whatever.
Just one?
People.
Yeah,
you just have one?
Multiples.
I was allowing that person, this fictitious person, to fill many people's roles, whatever. Anyway, we're getting off track already.
We are, sorry.
Anyway,
everybody's great.
Yeah, no, it's that time of year. Let's talk about some of the games from last week.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
All right, let's talk about Arkansas at Auburn. Arkansas winning this one 41-27. Matt getting the point in this one. Arkansas only led 17-13 at halftime, but really poured it on, obviously, in the second half. Not going to belabor this one. Arkansas winning, getting back to winning football, and then Auburn kind of doing what they've been doing lately. Jesse, what are your takeaways?
Yeah, my two takeaways just focus on Auburn for the most part. I mean, we look at the score and you kind of see what Arkansas was able to do. But the first one is there were just no second half adjustments. Auburn once again just folded in the second half after having a somewhat promising and competitive first half, and then didn't come out and do anything. Arkansas did almost everything in the second half. And it just looked like the Tigers were not controlling the line of scrimmage, and they lost energy, and the Razorbacks outscored Auburn 24-14 in the second half. So that's not a shock. It shouldn't be a shock to Tiger fans. It shouldn't be a shock to anybody in the SEC. And then my second one is just, if you look at where Auburn was this time last year and where they are this year, it's what we talk about, regression. There's so much regression from last season to this season. A season ago, it was Auburn who actually controlled both, lines of scrimmage on defense and on offense. And it was them who were scoring in the second half, running the ball effectively. And they didn't do that this time. The team is almost a shell of what they were. And I know we'll get into it in the news section, but now kids are transferring at a very high volume. And it looks like there's going to be a lot of turmoil down on the plains.
For sure. Matt, your takeaways for this one?
I thought that this game would be a little bit closer than it was. I feel like both these teams were pretty evenly matched, but like Jesse said, when you get outscored that much in the second half, it's kind of hard to win a football game. I think that talent-wise, both these teams are somewhat close, but I think it came down to coaching. And, we know Sam Pittman knows the X's and O's. He's taken a cellar dweller team that is the Razorbacks, and he's got them up to a level where they're able to compete and able to make some noise. And I think this is one of those situations where, Harsin finally got his number called. And I think I said it last week. I said, if this game turns into a rout and Auburn isn't able to haul the mail for this one, we may see Harsin packing up the U-Haul before the weekend's over. And granted, they waited till Monday, but it happened. So
he had more of a trick than a treat Halloween.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. And I don't think he's I don't think he's gonna play nice on the way out completely either. Because I don't know if you guys saw the statement he released a couple hours ago, but I'll bring it back up when we get to the news segment. But yeah, good win for the Razorbacks, but man, it is tough sledding down in Auburn right now.
Yeah, and we'll certainly get into that, but I couldn't agree more. My takeaways on this one, KJ Jefferson is an absolute beast. I was even texting you guys during the game. I saw him just take that guy and just literally throw him into the ground on the way to the end zone.
Gritty.
And I was like, yeah, he's just built different.
It was a great play too. Guy had a full shot on him, and KJ just went, no, sir, and just kept, well, no, sir, or whatever. And I can't do Pittman right now, but he just kept on trucking. It was a great play.
Oh, for sure. And then, so I hesitate to say this, and I'm not saying this with absolute oomph, but I do believe that Robbie Ashford is starting to show some maturity. I mean, he's getting some experience. We saw him make some really good plays out there, some good decisions. So I think for him, he's getting a little bit more confidence, and that will go far for him. And so we'll see how he continues to develop as things continue to evolve there.
Stat-wise, he looked pretty good. I mean, he threw for 285 and he rushed for 87. So,
and taking care of the football.
A bad day. Yeah,
that's important.
So, I mean,
he was a hopeful, bright spot in that game for Auburn. I mean, if anything, that's the one guy that you look at and you're like, all right, well, he's good.
Right. And then to your point, Jesse, about controlling the line of scrimmage, this game really reminded me of the Georgia Auburn game, where it was slow in the start, but in the end, Arkansas just wearing them down in the line of scrimmage and eventually just dominating the line of scrimmage in the game. And, that can definitely happen when you're a team like Auburn who is struggling with an offensive identity. Because I mean, obviously, when you're not helping your defense out, eventually they're going to get winded, and it's just kind of a slow progression. So, anyway, more news to follow for Auburn. Let's go ahead and move to Florida against Georgia. Georgia winning this one 42-20. I got the point in this one. So the summary of the game, Georgia got off to a really fast start. Defense making stops. Anthony Richardson. I guess you could say he was hampered by that hit. I mean, he definitely took a difficult or a hard hit at the beginning of the game and looked like he was in some pain. Now, how much did that affect him? I can't really say. When he scrambled, he looked to be effective. I just wonder how much of that was part of the game plan too, was try to make him be more of a pocket passer. I don't really know. All I'm saying is when he scrambled, he looked okay. The Dogs led 28-3 at half. And if you're from the state of Georgia, that score will always make you nervous. But true to form, Florida came out in the second half with a methodical drive to score. Then Amari Burney had a forced fumble, which resulted in a field goal. Then he had an interception, and right after that, they got an immediate touchdown due mostly to a bad angle taken by Georgia secondary. I think he was trying to jump the route, and he just came up a little bit too far there. That made it 28-20. Matt, you were texting and saying, man, this game is a snooze fest. And then right after that, I was like, Really? It's 2020 right now.
It was dull as all
It
get out
was.
until that point.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden it's a game again. Georgia did respond with a methodical drive of their own to make it 35-20 at the end of the third, and then the fourth quarter really kind of belonged to Georgia, though, as the offensive line really kind of took charge, and we started seeing larger chunks of yards on rushes and things like that, starting to take command of the game. So, and they were able to drain the clock to close the game out. So, what are your guys' takeaways? Just whoever, jump in.
I mean, my first one is just that there's turnover troubles. I think we've seen it in a couple games when it comes to Georgia, but that's when they get really vulnerable, is when they stop taking care of the football, which is an obvious no brainer right there. But, when they played Kent State, it was the same sort of thing. They lost a turnover battle 3-1. And that was a very underwhelming win to a lower tier opponent. And then in their 26-22 win against Mizzou, which was a pretty hyped game when you're watching it, they needed fourth quarter rally to avoid that loss. And part of that was losing the turnover battle, because it was 2-0 in the turnover battle. And then, same sort of thing here, is the turnovers really started to cost them and give life to the Gators in the third quarter. And you just can't have that. The McIntosh fumble on the Georgia 27 led to a Florida field goal, like you mentioned. On the next possession, Bennett was intercepted, which led to a 78-yard touchdown pass from Richardson to Xavier Henderson 3 plays later. So Georgia was able to kind of close out the game with a big bang. But you have to look at it, when Georgia does not take care of the football, they make themselves very vulnerable, and they have to watch that going into tougher SEC opponents, especially going into this week. My second one is penalty calls. So Florida was penalized 7 times for 53 yards compared to just 4 penalties totaling 40 yards on Georgia. And the Gators entered the game tied for number 10 nationally with the fewest penalty yards per game. And, a few calls that went against UF had a particularly large impact on the game. Georgia tight end Ladd McConkey appeared to kind of push a defender off on a critical 30-yard completion that set up the Georgia final touchdown before halftime. And instead of Jason Marshall from Florida, he got called for pass interference there. So ultimately, Georgia was able to avoid a lot of penalties, which, is one of their strengths in the SEC. They are, I think ranked number 5 nationally with fewest penalties per game. And that's huge. We've talked about it a lot in other teams, but when you're able to avoid getting penalties, you're able to really maximize your opportunities with the football. So my big 2, turnovers and penalties.
Matt?
Like I said, I thought this was going to be a little bit of a snooze fest, and then Florida tried to make a game of it. I'm a little shocked at how lopsided this rivalry's become as of late. According to the stat I looked up earlier, Bulldogs have won 5 in a row and 10 out of the last 12 in the series. So this is a rivalry that needs a little bit of a shot in the arm. Florida's gone through the tumultuous back and forth with the Mullins stuff a couple of years ago, and now with last year, and now with is it Napier? Is that his name? I'm blanking on the name. So Florida's going to have to start making some moves in order to get back up to the same level as UGA. This used to be a game where Georgia was never really favored, or it was always a 50-50 shot. But here, as of late, it's been all Georgia all the time. And I'm kind of curious how that's going to look going forward. Because like I've said, I'll stand by this statement. Napier in my book is Butch Jones version 2.0. I don't see, and I've said that multiple times.
I know.
I'm not convinced he's the guy. I will be shocked if he does turn Florida into something. I hope he doesn't, but if he does, then we'll see how it goes. The other big thing that kind of stuck out for me in this game was I wasn't super impressed with Stetson Bennett. He throws for 300 plus, but he's 19 for 38 with 2 TDs and 2 interceptions. And let's be frank here, Florida's defense isn't exactly the greatest on the planet. And I think that's a little worrisome, especially going into the Tennessee game when Tennessee's defenses looked considerably better over the last couple of weeks. And we'll talk about Tennessee's game against Kentucky in a second, but it's just, I think that's a point of worry. I know that, UGA has Brock Bowers, and he's been kind of carrying the load, so to speak. Not to diminish what any other offensive players have done, but Georgia's got some holes, some things that they need to work on.
I love that Stetson Bennett is older than like 3 starting NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah.
He just turned 25 for those that don't know it. And like literally a day or 2 before the game. And he's older than, what is it, Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Several of them.
Hendon Hooker's also 24 and some change.
It's wild.
It's what happens when you get 6 years of eligibility.
Right.
Why would you ever leave? You're getting paid. Well, you're not getting paid, but
well, sort of.
You
can now.
You're getting a free education, and you can make a little scratch on the side. I mean, why wouldn't you stay all 6, 7, 8 years? Lots of people go to college for 7 years. They're called doctors.
Usually they come out with like doctorates, but yeah.
Yes.
Dr. Stetson Bennett.
That's it. So Napier, I think he's a little bit more likable than Butch Jones. I think we can give him that. I don't know.
Yes.
So far he seems to be. And to your point about the winning streak and Georgia, if you're a Georgia fan and you lived through playing Spurrier, no win streak is long enough. So
yeah.
Anyway, so real quick takeaways here for me. Poor Marcus Rosemy-Jack Saint for Georgia. Like a couple of weeks ago, I heard him referred to as Rosemy Saint Jack, like multiple times on SEC Network. And then this week, Gary is calling him Rosemary Saint Jack Saint. And
retire, Gary. Bail out. You're done, you horse's ass.
And I get it. It's not exactly a conventional name, but it's just funny to just hear it just consistently mispronounced week in and week out.
Quite literally his job to get it correct.
He did something the other day.
Quite literally.
He did that during the Tennessee Bama game where he butchered somebody's name. I can't remember who it was, but
probably multiple.
I mean, I've done sports broadcasting, and I at least know to look at the paper before you say the kid's name. It ain't that hard.
Look at the paper, and you know your assignment before you even get to town.
Right.
Just review.
Right.
That's literally the only game that they do.
And
one a week.
Most colleges, when they give you a roster, there's a pronunciation guide on the roster.
Yes.
Well, right. Yeah. There's that.
He's got no excuses. It's because Gary.
Well, it is Gary.
He's
He'll
literally. He's seen it.
Georgia's defense, like you said, can't afford to take plays off against Tennessee like they did against Florida. We saw that multiple times. Now, I'm not saying they didn't play well, but there are some games when you can take 0 plays off and get away with it. Stetson Bennett got a little careless with a few throws. You guys have already said that. Just agreeing. I will say though, with his throws, there was about 3 passes where he hit dudes between the numbers and they just straight up dropped it.
Yeah.
So I think his stat line could have been a lot better. And those weren't short passes either. I'm talking like deep balls that were like perfect balls that they dropped. Anyway, so it is a little bit of a concern, but obviously we're gonna have to prepare hard this week. So let's go ahead and get into Missouri at South Carolina. Mizzou.
Mercy.
I know, right? Mizzou won this one 23-10. Nobody got the point because we all, this was one of those they lulled us to sleep, right? So this was the Mayor's Cup, as it has become known, since both of these schools are located in their respective Columbias.
I guess that makes sense. Okay.
Yes.
So not the Battle of the Bear Barrel.
Stupid.
Okay.
It's not, but apparently there is a tangible trophy, which, as Eli Drinkwitz said, give us a tangible trophy and the guys will play hard. So apparently that's what it takes. I don't know.
Maybe they should play hard every day. I don't know.
You would think, right? That's
no,
like an odd statement.
Drinky has to have his little things that he likes to throw out that are so cliche. We need a trophy.
Yeah, he's a big tchotchke guy. Big tchotchke guy.
Oh my god.
Yes.
I bet his office is covered in tchotchkes.
Oh, you know it.
He goes yard sailing on Saturdays. 1,000%.
I guarantee you, he has a big sign in the back of his office that says "Live, Laugh, Love." I guarantee it.
He got it from someone's garage sale. I promise.
I guarantee it.
I completely believe that. In this game, Mizzou got off to a fast start, leading 17-7 at half, and obviously that basically pretty much continued throughout the second half. Not a lot of changes there. Marshawn Lloyd, one of South Carolina's biggest playmakers, who we've talked about on this show before, especially last week, went down with an injury in this one. It appears to be a thigh bruise, though, and Shane Beamer says he should be fine. So Carolina fans can kind of rest a little bit easier in that. So what kind of takeaways do you guys have for this one?
Matt, I'll let you go first.
I had a feeling that Carolina was going to have a little bit of a letdown after their big win last week, and I was right. And this is exactly what I thought was going to happen. I thought that they would find a way to win this ball game because Missouri is not that great, but I guess the Gamecocks are going to do what they're going to do. I don't even know where to start to try and pull this thing apart. This was not a pretty game at all. I'm still trying to figure out what in the world anybody ever saw about in Spencer Rattler. Cat goes 20 for 30 for 171 and an INT. So not that great. Just not a fun game to watch. Gamecocks had barely over 200 yards offense. I mean, just it's just one of those things where you're just like, why did we rank them? Because they beat somebody? Okay, fine. But I knew the minute that game was over last week. I was like, you better watch out because they're gonna have a hangover game next week. And sure enough, they were hung over all right.
100%. Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, I said it last week. Like, the one thing about Mizzou is their defense is okay. And like, I'm not going to say good. I'm going to say okay because they beat South Carolina, but they came into the week ranked 27th defensively. And, they just allowed a total of 186 yards and just 32 yards on the ground. So the Gamecocks 32 yards on the ground are the fewest allowed by Missouri in a conference game since the same South Carolina Gamecocks rushed for 16 yards against Mizzou back in 2019. Before that, though, you have to go all the way back to 2009 for the last time the Tigers allowed fewer than 40 rushing yards in a conference game. So the defense helps out Mizzou significantly in comparison to their offense because it's not like really great. And my second thing is, I know we talked about it, but like maybe South Carolina does not cruise to a bowl game. Maybe they don't go in racking up some wins into Gainesville. I don't know. But all of the good things that the Gamecocks had from last week, on offense and defense and their 4-game winning streak, they kind of went up in smoke. So they're going to really have to get right with the Lord before they play Vanderbilt, which no one should have to say that. At no point should I have to say you need to get right before Vanderbilt, but here we are, because after that it's Florida, Tennessee, and Clemson, and a woof.
Yeah,
that's gonna be
woof.
I completely agree. And Matt, you were talking about how they were going to struggle with success. I think they experienced some of that rat poison, and
you want to know what South Carolina fans are saying, though, just for
what's that
tea for everybody?
Yeah, please.
They're really pissed off about play calling on the offensive side of the ball.
Oh,
roll mad.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess getting 200 yards of offense will do that to you. And
I feel that spiritually as a Bama fan.
Yeah, they're certainly not used to the pats on the back. That was going to be something to deal with anyway. I don't know how much that influenced the game, but certainly it's something that they're not used to. The announcers were even talking about this, how South Carolina was very much aided in the past few weeks by getting off to a fast start. Kickoff return for a touchdown against A&M, fumble recovery, and a touchdown against Kentucky. This game, not so much. They got off to a slow start and never really got rolling, obviously, looking at that stat line. And as you mentioned, Spencer Rattler is struggling. His struggles continue. I agree. It is wild to think about where he was, like a legit
what
Heisman
year
contender.
Is he a senior?
Rattler, I think he's
I don't remember. Of course, I guess everybody got an extra year, right?
But, I'll look.
But as far as like his degree goes,
I thought he's a junior. Maybe not. Maybe he's a senior.
He may be close to getting.
He's a junior, so he's probably close to graduating.
Spencer, bring it in, baby. I would suggest whatever your degree is in, I would suggest finishing it. Let's go for, play for 4, stay for 4. Let's finish that one out though. And maybe try to get an internship or something within that career field, because I just don't know that the NFL is for you. Okay.
Jesse, I've got some not so great news.
What's the major?
What is it?
What's the
Based
degree?
on what I'm seeing on the South Carolina website, his degree is in interrelated studies.
I don't even know what that
It's kind of a catch-all.
Interrelated
if there is
studies.
someone that runs an interrelated studies company, maybe reach out to him, give him
Exactly.
an internship this summer. I feel like he will need it.
Yes, remember, Spencer, life is about more than just football. And with that, a bunch of people just turned this podcast off.
Maybe he has a minor, like a really good minor.
Maybe. I mean, I hope so. Yeah, if you're in your junior year, you got to be, getting there somewhat. Even if you just make something up, you can't just be general studies, So
I've never heard of that degree.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's if I remember correctly, that's the major that everyone who's just kind of playing sports.
See,
Yeah,
at
it sounds like the
Bama-
old school general studies degree.
Yeah, at
that's
Bama,
exactly what
they're
it is.
all
Yeah.
communications or like sports nutrition majors. Like that's
Yeah.
the two.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move to Kentucky at Tennessee. Tennessee winning this one 44-6. Matt getting the point. I really don't have a summary for this because it was an absolute blowout. I mean, you can look at the scoreboard yourself. Look at the total yards. Tennessee 422, Kentucky only 205. Kentucky turning over the ball 3 times. I'm embarrassed for Kentucky. Matt, I know you're ready to talk about this one. What do you got?
I honestly don't have a whole lot to talk about because I kind of anticipated that Tennessee was going to take care of business in this game. I did not, however, anticipate them to pitch a shutout through 3 out of 4 quarters.
Was the black jerseys?
Listen, oh, dude, the dark mode jerseys, and I don't know if you saw the clip, but at the very beginning when they do the intro, they played like this weird, creepy, like distorted version of Rocky Top and flash the lights. Like it was really, really cool. I kind of hope the black jerseys make an appearance at least once every year. I just feel like they're neat. And
is that brand new?
Look great. They've had black jerseys several times. That was the first time that they went all black. Because I think last year they had a blackout game like that, but they didn't get, due to supply chain issues, they didn't get the black helmets until after the game. So they did white helmets, I think, for that game. I don't recall.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I actually think it was the South Carolina game last year. I can't remember. But yeah, I was anticipating this game to be a little closer than it was. I was expecting Will Levis to have a little bit better day than he did, and Will Levis got absolutely just demolished in this game. 16 for 27 for 98 yards and 3 interceptions. His draft stock had to have taken a serious hit based on that, because again, let's face facts here. This is a Tennessee team that is known for their offense, not their defense. Now, I will say the defense has improved since the Bama game. They have looked a lot better. Coaching has definitely come in key there. But man, Levis just was not able to get into a rhythm. They were putting a lot of pressure on him. I don't recall how many sacks there were in this game, but I think there were at least a couple of, there were definitely a lot of hurries. And there was definitely, let's see, we had 4 sacks total in that game. So it was pretty bad day for the Kentucky offensive line. And then the Tennessee offense doing what the Tennessee offense has done all season. Hendon Hooker goes off 19 for 25 for 245 yards and 3 TDs. No interceptions in this game. He's only thrown 1 on the whole season, and that was a little bit of a duck against Alabama. Jabari Small getting 50 plus yards, 78 yards in the game. Not his best night out, but still pretty good. Jalen Hyatt continuing to do Jalen Hyatt things. And I really legitimately think that the question should not be, is Tennessee going to win the Heisman this year? It should be, which Tennessee player is going to win the Heisman this year, because Jalen Hyatt's making a real big case. to be a Heisman contender. I think he should get an invite to New York, same as Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker obviously is favored right now, but that offense is just potent on a different level. I was not anticipating to do this to Kentucky, and they came out swinging. Granted, a little bit of a slow start to start off, and then they put up 20 points in the second quarter, and then they really didn't let go after that. So good win for the Big Orange to get some momentum going into next week against Georgia. And I don't have any complaints at this point. Josh Heupel could come to my house and kick my dog, and I'd be like, "Thank you, sir. Would you like to kick the other one?" I'm kidding, of course, but you get the point.
Metaphorically.
Yeah, metaphorically kick the
And Jesse, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, my one call out of this game is, aside from the fact that it was boring, is UK's offensive play calling was bad. I mean, if you're a Kentucky fan, I'd be pretty pissed off. Their offensive coordinator, Rich Scangarello, I hope I'm saying that right.
It's a great name.
Yeah, Scangarello. He had an extra time to scan the film, an extra week to prepare for one of the worst passing defenses. And it didn't look like he took that time at all. There were way too many first down run plays that finished with either right at the line of scrimmage or maybe a yard or two gain. That was it. UT's weakness on defense was its secondary and passing defense, but Will Levis threw 13 times in the first half, and that can't happen. You've got to understand who you're playing and play to their weaknesses. And I mean, I get it. You're trying to run the clock, down. You're trying to run your own tempo, choose some of that clock, but they weren't putting together long drives. It wasn't working. And then it's like they came out in the second half and they were just gonna do the same thing. It was predictable offensively. And by the time Will Levis finally threw the ball more, the result was, already kind of set in stone for Tennessee. And the Vols DBs were prepared for it. They knew that potentially coming in to the second half that there was going to be some more throwing, and they were very much prepared for it, as seen by those two very easy interceptions. So if I'm a Kentucky fan, I'm pretty frustrated as far as the offensive calling in that game. But Tennessee did what Tennessee is going to do this year, apparently. And I agree with Matt. Will Levis's draft stock just went.
Huge hit, big hit, I think.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, something I want to also mention too. Indication of how your offense doing is on third down efficiency, and in this game, Kentucky was 2 for 13 on third down.
Yeah.
I hate to see it. This is one of the worst losses in the Stoops era. This is bad.
Yeah. 100% agree with that one. The difference between these two offenses was set up in such a way where if Kentucky was not able to do their methodical driving as they wanted to do, this was going to get out of hand very quickly. And so, they just weren't able to get anything going. And obviously the defense didn't help them out. Credit to Tennessee, though. They played out of their minds. Obviously the offense, as you said, is going to do what we kind of have expected them to do, but the defense is what surprised me this game. They just were just going crazy and playing incredible football on that side of the ball. But Kentucky's bad, y'all. It's like I don't understand what is going on. Will Levis, as we said, didn't look like that just a few weeks ago. Let's not forget, this was like 3 weeks ago. The guys on, I think it was CBS or whatever it was, were saying how much of a top NFL recruit he was. Like he was like top 5 and possibly the top quarterback to go in the NFL draft.
No
and not looking to be the case right now.
Fast, my friend.
But it was just so telling. Mark Stoops is just absolutely defeated in the press conference afterwards. He was just saying, we knew exactly what they wanted to do, what they were going to do, and we couldn't do anything about it. And it's just like got to be the most helpless feeling.
I mean, because it's different, right? If you lose and you put up a lot of points, like I know the outcome is still the same, but you're like, all right, we were able to affect them offensively, but they didn't affect them offensively or defensively. They lost on both sides of the ball. At least when you lose and you are doing okay on one side, it's not that bad, but this hurts.
And when you know exactly what they're going to do too, right? Yeah. You know what they're going to do. You prep for it all week and you still can't stop them. So that's where they were. So All right, let's go ahead and move on to Ole Miss at Texas A&M. Ole Miss winning this one 31-28. I got the point in this one. Really interesting storylines going on here. A&M starts Connor Wigman at quarterback, who had a great game. I mean, he had 338 yards, 4 touchdowns. Best performance by an A&M quarterback this year. That's encouraging. If you're an A&M fan, that's one of the few encouraging things going on right now. But they've lost 4 in a row, right, to drop to 3-5. Fans at Kyle Field, I mean, God bless them. they showed up and were actually, I mean, they were a factor in this game. I mean, it was a close game. Unfortunately, or ultimately, Ole Miss pulled off the victory on the road. Quinshon Judkins, who's just 19 years old, let's not forget, rushed for 205 yards and a touchdown on 34 carries for Ole Miss. So dude's on fire. What do you guys got? What's your takeaways?
Dude, Judkins is legit. Running, he's already looked like, I would say, and what a lot of people are saying, a future Heisman candidate. But, forget about being in the future for, a Heisman. But after Saturday, he really is the future for Ole Miss. I would say he totaled a whopping 34 carries, like you mentioned, for 205 yards and a touchdown. And he was able to run over the Aggies, who have had some trouble stopping. They had some trouble in the game stopping quarterback Jackson Dart and fellow running back Zach Evans. And, that essentially helped Ole Miss get to a win. My second one is for Ole Miss. Consistency to me still remains an issue. Their offense has slowed down in multiple games this year. We've continued to talk about it. And no lead is necessarily safe in the SEC. And you just can't let up. You have to play 4 quarters. And I don't feel like Ole Miss has done that at all this year. They have not played a start to finish football game lights out. And that is not great. And it just shows how limited I think their offense is right now. So they are relying heavily on the run game. And that is interesting for, I think, an old Lane Kiffin offense. And when it gets late in the games, sometimes they become predictable and a little easy to stop. So they've really got to play 4 quarters, because this style of play is not going to get you through a very tough end of SEC schedule.
Absolutely. Matt?
Yeah, Ole Miss was my pick to win the SEC West. And after this performance, I'm just like, I don't know if we can really lean on Lane at this point. This should have been a little bit more of a margin. I think Aggies almost came back on them there at the tail end. It's just a question of what's going on. And like Jesse said, inconsistency is an issue. There's a lot of up and down, especially over the last couple of games. And it's a question of what does Lane got to do to get them playing consistently good. And I think they were doing that at the tail end of last year. They had a couple of really solid games there at the end of last year. And just the last couple of weeks, it's been a lot of up and down. And the problem is if you're down when somebody else is going up, it's going to cost you. And it may very well cost the Rebels before the season's over. The other thing that popped out at me was Moose Muhammad, who we have not really talked much about him this season. I was looking at his stats over the last couple of games.
Name.
Yeah, fantastic one. I think we talked about him a couple weeks ago when they played Mississippi State. He was targeted 8 times, or he had 8 catches in this game for 112 yards, averaging 14 yards a catch, and he had a pretty good day. And I think that's someone that they're going to have to lean on going forward, because you got to have that downfield threat. You look at any of the teams in the SEC that are winning ball games, they've got those downfield threats. And I think that this is somebody that Jimbo's going to have to target a little bit more going forward. So almost got him, but Ole Miss is going to have to fix some of these issues going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. The takeaways I got, A&M, whether you A&M fans like it or not, you're stuck with Jimbo, I think. So right now, if they got rid of him, they owe him $86 million if they fired him right now. That is the buyout right now.
I don't know who Jimbo Fisher's agent is, but they I would be trying to get him to be my agent right now.
If you're a college kid, hire that person.
It's the it's the guy, I can't remember it, but it's the guy who's like the agent for all the big name coaches, and he gets them. Yeah. Anyway,
is that Saban's agent too?
He's really well known, and his name escapes me right now. Anyway, so $86 million if they fire him right now. And if I understood the graphic right, the only one whose buyout is higher is Kirby, who's, I think his entire contract is like guaranteed right now. So it's like 102 million was his. So yeah, anyway, and then like I said earlier, Wigman is the future at A&M. I mean, like if you watched him play, he just looks different than any quarterback they've had this year. So I think good things to come from him, and you have to be encouraged. One of the few encouraging moments for A&M fans has got to be watching him play. And then Lane had 2 zingers in the post-game interview on the field, as you guys probably saw. First one was that he felt their offense did really well against all those 5 stars. Wow, against all those 5 stars.
Yeah.
I love it.
And then when asked what he was going to be for Halloween, he said, I don't know, maybe Jimbo's got a Joker outfit for me. Because apparently in the off season, I guess Jimbo said he compared, didn't he call Saban and Kiffin both? He said that they were clown acts or something like that.
Uh-huh.
So,
and Lane came
keeps
out.
receipts now. Lane will keep a receipt.
Lane is like a millennial girl. He has receipts. And he also came out and said, when somebody talks about you and your buddy Nick Saban and calls you guys like clowns, it was good to win this one.
Yeah.
So he and Nick have a common enemy, and that makes me really happy.
And he's a grade A troll, and it's like it's going to be subtle. It's going to be well worded. It's like I think he probably, like the day before, he like rehearses these in the mirror. Like if this happens, this is what I'm going to say.
That's brilliant.
So,
yeah. I mean, if I ever get in some sort of like petty Twitter battle and I can get my own Twitter team, I'm drafting Lane Kiffin for sure.
No doubt. Oh man, just give him the phone. I'm not tweeting.
Absolutely.
He's doing it all. All right, so that does it for last week's games. Current pick'em standings.
By the way, guys, I looked up who the agent for Jimbo is, and it's Jimmy Sexton is his name.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
He's represented a bunch of people, including like Sam Darnold, Phillip Rivers, Derrick Henry. He's also a University of Tennessee graduate. He was Reggie White's roommate in college.
Oh wow.
Who knew?
Fun fact.
I just learned that too.
Fun SEC fact.
Jimmy, if you want to come on the show, you just let us know.
Yeah. I don't think Jimmy's listening to the podcast.
He might.
It doesn't strike me as the type. He's busy making stellar deals for lots and lots of money. Apparently.
I'll come on the show in 2 years, guys.
But in order to do it, he's trying to stay in tune with grassroots stuff. He's got to stay in tune. Anyway, all right. The current pick'em standings. I've got 32. Matt's got 24. Jesse has 16. Again, lots left to be played. And then obviously the values go up as the playoff games come and all that stuff, bowl games, etc. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into something we've all been ready and excited to talk about, the news.
Here's the news.
All right, so before we get to the elephant in the room of the CFP rankings, let's talk about a few things that happened. Recently, Auburn hires Mississippi State's athletic director, John Cohen, to be their AD. Shortly thereafter, Auburn says see ya to Bryan Harsin. Cadillac Williams announced as the interim head coach. Now, I know this has been a long time coming. We've all said Harsin is a dead man walking. We knew this was coming. But what I want to know from you guys is, who do you think is the best fit for Auburn? Just jump in.
I would say personally, as a Bama fan, that's completely unbiased whatsoever about the state of Auburn. I think Bill O'Brien would be just like a really lovely hire.
I knew it.
And it's like a BOGO because it's Black Friday almost, probably. You can also get Pete Golding too. So like you get Bill O'Brien, we're going to throw in Pete Golding, have Adam. I think that's a really great fit for the system that you're currently working that loses.
Is that your real answer?
That's my I hope so answer. I honestly don't know. I don't know who is a good fit at Auburn. I think everyone is touting and screaming from the hilltops that it's going to be Deion Sanders. Like, we know that, right? Everybody is saying it now. Last week, and we know that coaches lie because that, they don't want to give away anything before it happens. But
I will be the coach for the Miami Dolphins next year. Oh no, you won't. You're going to Alabama there, bud.
But he said on game day that he had no intention. He loves what he's doing at Jackson State. He loves being able to coach and give the opportunity to athletes that would likely not have the opportunity at a D1 school. And he loves coaching them as people as well as players, whatever, blah, 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 blah. We've all heard it.
That's all coach speak.
It's total coach speak. I don't know. I truly don't. I think that's what they want. I'm sure they're going to throw a ton of money at him, but I also don't know Harsin's buyout.
So it's a lot. I read a stat the other day where between Harsin and his predecessor, they're paying about $54,000 a day in buyouts right now.
Yeah,
Auburn
they
is.
spent a lot of money. He must have Jimmy Sexton as his agent.
Oh, because they've not just fired Harsin, they've fired offensive coordinator Eric Kiesau.
Yeah, the purge has kind of started down there.
And the tight ends coach Brad Bettel. So there's been associate AD football chief of staff Brad Lorando and director of recruiting Darren Usher. So there's a lot that's happening at Auburn. It's going to be a complete restaff.
I wonder if they've already got somebody in the pipe.
They probably
would think with them hiring an AD, surely they don't. But
I don't know. I was going to ask you, what do you think, Matt? Who do you think is the best fit for Auburn?
I honestly don't know. I think if I'm Auburn, I'm probably calling Lane Kiffin. And this would not be the first time that a Mississippi coach has left Mississippi to go to Auburn. Tommy Tuberville did the same thing in I think 93 or 94. Not to mention that, Lane would love to have to go against Saban across the state for in-state recruiting. Not to mention the fact that, they're going to back up the Brinks truck for Lane because Lane took Ole Miss. That hasn't done a whole lot, and he's doing something with them. Another name that's been thrown around that's also kind of a little controversial is Mike Leach, because let's remember that Auburn just hired Mississippi State's AD,
right?
And he just hired Mike Leach a couple of years ago. So, we were saying awful things about. We weren't saying awful things, but we were not so sure that the Leach experiment was going to work. But if you take Mike Leach and put him into a souped up engine kind of car that is Auburn football when it's clicking, it could work. We may see Hugh Freeze come back to the SEC. They might finally bring him back. I don't think they will, but that's a possibility. I also saw another report that said Bobby Petrino's name is being floated out there as a possible replacement. If they do that, they're going to lose the entire fan base. I don't see that happening. But, all I know is that for me, I don't want any of our assistant coaches taking that job. They need to stay in Knoxville for at least 3 or 4 more years. So
maybe Matt Rule decides to come back to college.
He might.
That was another name. That was another name.
I'm trying to think if there's any other NFL coaches that might come out of the woodwork.
That's the thing. It's tough to know.
I think we've pretty much said almost all of them. There might have been 1 or 2 other names that were mentioned.
I mean, right now the top contenders are Deion Sanders, and I've seen it. Urban Meyer, Hugh Freeze, Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina, who's their head coach, Matt Rule, and Lane Kiffin. Those are the top ones that are being thrown out right now.
Matt Campbell out of Iowa State's also being looked at as well, from what I've heard. Todd Monken, there you go, Wes. You might lose your offensive coordinator. Is also another name I've seen floated out there as well. There's so many angles they could take with this. I personally think that Auburn's going to do everything they can to try to get Deion or Lane. I think they're going to try and bring one of those two in, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get them.
Well,
I don't know if Deion's going to be willing to give up what he's built at Jackson State in order to get to Auburn.
That's the thing. And the only thing I can think is just an insane amount of money might get him to
He doesn't
leave.
need money though. He's been making multi-millions of dollars since the 90s. Like, homeboy ain't hurting for money.
Yeah, and he's getting all these incredible athletes to come down there. They got what, the number 1 overall recruit in last year's class. And not to mention all these transfers coming from other schools as well. So
he's getting all sorts of endorsements and stuff. He's doing Affleck commercials with Nick Saban, for God's sake. He doesn't have to go to a premier program to get money.
Auburn. I do hear that OJ Simpson is out of prison. I don't know what the terms are for his release, but he's out of prison.
Awful idea.
Oh man, no, Urban Meyer is already the villain. That would be perfect, a perfect story. I don't know who's the perfect fit for Auburn right now. But
it's going to be someone we don't know. It's going to be like a Billy Napier hire where we're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I sure hope they make a splash with this, because here's the thing. I personally, when I was a kid, I was always big into Auburn. That was in the 90s when they were clicking along pretty well. The Tuberville years were decent. I don't make that face. So I hope it's a good hire, because again, just like when we were talking about any other SEC program that's a premier program, the sport's better when these teams are up. And I feel like Auburn's one of those programs that needs a solid hire. So they're going to have to go get somebody, and they're going to have to be able to hit the ground running. Maybe they go get Coach Ogeron. He wouldn't be his first tour in the SEC.
I hope it's not Mike Leach, because I want to like Mike Leach. And I feel like as long as he's at Mississippi State or a school like that, I can be okay with that.
Yeah.
But when he comes to Auburn and we have to play him every year, and then he's, wearing those annoying Auburn colors and everything. Yeah, it's just.
Can you imagine Mike Leach in Auburn colors?
No. He doesn't fit the culture of Auburn. It just isn't.
He really doesn't. I feel like Mississippi State is kind of perfect because he could kind of make his own identity there and create his weird pirate hybrid bulldog stuff over there.
Is Dan Mullen still looking for a job? Or I don't know.
He's an analyst.
I'm sure sure that he wouldn't say no if they send him
They're still paying Gus Malzahn, right? So why not just
bring him on back?
Bring him back.
Yeah. I think UCF right now is 6-1.
They're not bad.
If I remember what their schedule. I looked at it the other day when
they were better under him than Harsin.
Because
Harsin has a lot of tea and everybody hates him.
And Malzahn beat Bama like what, 3 times? I think it was. I mean, that's crazy. Like he struggled in a lot of other games, but he seemed to do okay against Bama, a lot better than a lot of other people. So
yep. And we've already seen Derek Mason tweets about like things that were said between Harsin and Mason. We've seen I've seen a bunch of memes that's like Bryan Harsin, it's like, what are you going to do now that you're out of Auburn? And then it just like shows the woman that he was supposedly involved with. And
who liked the tweet comparing him saying that he was the worst coach in Auburn history, which is funny. That
a lot going on there.
I mean, Gus is 15-6 at UCF.
Yeah.
I don't see what you're already paying the man. Just bring him back.
Yeah. Where his checks go. You have the direct deposit.
If I was him, I might be satisfied. I mean, he's getting paid a lot to be down there, and it's got to be way less pressure than Auburn. Yeah. I mean, UCF has got expectations, I know, but it can't be the same, right?
But we can't say there's going to be one name that they will not go get.
What is that?
Butch Jones.
Yes, he's still getting people coffee somewhere right now. I don't know.
No, he's actually the head coach at Arkansas State.
Yes, because he's head coach.
Yeah. Another fun question though is not just who do you think is the best fit, but
who's 1-5, by the way. Go ahead, Wes.
But who wants the Auburn job right now? Right. I mean, after what they did to Harsin after 2 years, not even 2 years, but the thing with that is though, I think that was just kind of a perfect storm type of thing though. We say that, he was going to be gone, but really the main cause behind that was, I think, because obviously the AD who hired him not there anymore, and then this new guy coming in, they're going to want him to make his own hire and stuff like that. So it just sort of makes sense. I don't know that.
Yes, but also the frustrating thing with Auburn is you look at last year, they were able to almost put Alabama out. I mean, almost. And
The last 5 games were that for Auburn.
They
really
have the talent. That's the frustrating thing is they have the talent. And we talked about it when we were talking about the past games. They've regressed. You have talent coming in. It's a premier program. You're able to recruit. You're able to get really good talent. And then all of a sudden they just can't perform. That doesn't make sense. That's a coaching call. And yes, it's probably the coordinators to some extent, but as a head coach, you have to get your coordinators in check. And that's why they're just completely cleaning house. I don't blame the AD for going in and cleaning house because the program is not doing well.
Yeah, I think that's why they hired him is because they want something fresh and obviously they were in need of an AD anyway. But I think it's just coincidental that he got fired this weekend. I don't think it's like they saw this last game and were like, oh, well, that was the last straw. No, I think they already knew. It was just kind of like, let's get a new AD in here. And once he's here, then we can make some real decisions. So,
or they have somebody that they know is ready to go. I don't know.
Yeah.
They might already have somebody signed up and they're just waiting until later in the season to announce it. They do that kind of stuff all the time.
Well, we do not have to wait any later for the first CFP rankings because they are here. So let's go through the top 10 and then, well, just the next position because the rest of them do not contain SEC teams. So let's start with number 1. Just go ahead and get that out of the way. The suspense will not be there. Number 1, Tennessee. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Georgia. Number 4, Clemson. Number 5, Michigan. Number 6, Alabama. Number 7, TCU. Number 8, Oregon. Number 9, USC. Number 10, LSU. And number 11, Ole Miss. And I'm dying to know what you guys think about this.
Clemson, get out of
come on. They're undefeated.
4.
They're undefeated. They're undefeated. Neither does Georgia.
You don't play a single. No. And I live in the middle of Clemson territory. I argue with people on the daily. Absolutely not. No. And LSU, I'm not saying I disagree. I'm just from the beginning of the season to now, I'm just very like, how did we get here?
I mean, I might say I disagree. LSU at number 10. Like, I get that they've made improvements.
I just don't know.
Number 10,
but like, who would you put?
10's pretty high. 10's pretty high.
But who?
I feel like Ole Miss I would have put before them.
Ole Miss?
I agree. I think Ole Miss should be up there too.
That's fair.
But go ahead.
I was just gonna say, first off, I'd like to say sorry to, or best wishes to the folks in Columbus, Ohio, right now, because there's a flood watch going on because there's everybody and their mothers crying right now because they thought they were going to be number 1. And if you look on Twitter right now, they are hot.
Really?
Tennessee is
It's because they only have Ohio State. We know this. It's
Ohio State fans have been coming after Tennessee on Ball Twitter nonstop since the Bama game. It has been nonstop. Ohio State fans are big mad that they're not the number 1 team right now. I think the top 4.
What is their reasoning? Like, why do they think they deserve
their
it?
argument is that you can't go from being one of the worst teams in the SEC 2 years ago to being a top dog in the complete. There's all these arguments. The whole CJ Stroud for Heisman situation also is in the mix. There's just all this back and forth.
I'm a Bama fan, and I loathe Tennessee to the core of my being. And they deserve to be number 1 over Ohio State. Come for me. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I just hope this isn't the kiss of death. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. We'll talk about the Georgia game. For me, I'm sorry, Wes, go ahead.
No, please finish.
Well, I was just going to say, I'm okay with this top 4. I don't know if I put Michigan behind Clemson.
I wouldn't.
I think that Michigan has a little bit more of a claim to be at 4 than Clemson does. In fact, I would say one loss Alabama has a better claim to be above Clemson too.
Yep. And you know that Matt is speaking the truth because number 1, he just mentioned Michigan and we know how he feels about Harbaugh. And number 2, he said Alabama, which again, as a Tennessee fan, we understand that.
I can put aside the orange tinted glasses for a moment to look analytically at it. This is a Clemson team that's not played anybody. The ACC is historically low this year. You don't have anybody in that conference aside from Wake Forest that's been making some noise and
Not anymore.
Syracuse. But,
Yeah, not anymore.
excuse me, I forgot about that. But yeah, I don't see Clemson, even undefeated Clemson. I would take a one-loss Oregon team before I take an undefeated Clemson.
Yeah. Also, how did Bo Nix and the Ducks get up there? Where?
It's because they've been tearing it up since Georgia.
They've been hurting people now.
Yeah,
They have been hurting people since that opening season loss to Georgia.
I can't get over Clemson at 4. Like I think of all the ones up top, that is the one that maybe shocked me the most. I get like the top 3. You could almost just throw the top 3 in a bag and throw them around a little bit and draw them out, because I mean stuff's going to work itself out, and you could argue that any of those teams could be up there. But Clemson, man, like I've seen them play this year and they just look awful. They've had the ugliest wins that I've seen this year. Now you could say that Georgia's had a few ugly wins as well, but I'm saying like on a repeated basis, we've seen Clemson just look bad and somehow
the name
pull
recognition
off a win.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I don't know. Gosh, I don't know who I would put. I guess I would slide Michigan up. I guess I don't know. I almost think I would knock Clemson down to 6, maybe swap them with TCU at 7, and then move Michigan and Bama both up. I just don't get it. I don't know what people are watching when they are looking at Clemson. But
it's also funny that a one-loss USC team's floating around back there too. And I'm trying to figure out how in the world TCU is undefeated, but then I remember they play in the Big 12, and the Big 12's nobody this year. So
the Big 12 is such a big mystery, more or less.
True.
I mean, it's
they spend most of their time beating each other up. And
yeah,
Texas has been the only team out of the Big 12 that's made any noise. I think Oklahoma's down this year. Texas is, they went toe to toe with Bama for a while. I think if Elwer, is that their quarterback's name? I think if he doesn't get knocked out in that game, I think he beats Bama. But
yeah. You had Kansas State and Oklahoma State, and all these teams would be on the rise, and then all of a sudden they just have a big loss or whatever. So yeah, they're, like you said, they're beating each other up in the Big 12. So so that's the first CFP rankings. I know that Rocky Top is hyped right now. No pun intended with Heupel, but I know they did talk to him afterwards, after the selection show or the rankings show. And, he's basically just talking to his guys and saying, hey, no matter what, we're just going to continue business as usual. It's not going to, and I know that's what the coaches are supposed to say, right? You gotta say that, but we'll see. We'll see how things work out.
Easier said than done.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get into them. Let's go ahead and talk about the upcoming games.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
All right. Well, the first game of the day, we have Kentucky at 5-3, 2-3 in the SEC at Missouri, 4-4, 2-3 in the SEC. That's noon on the SEC Network. As we mentioned, obviously Kentucky coming off of a demoralizing loss, which is interesting. I think that we've kind of thought of Kentucky, especially as we've talked about them on this show, how they've kind of stepped into upper mid tier, maybe not top tier, but maybe a kind of upper mid. But one could argue that they're back to just mid tier, almost on the verge of maybe going to bottom tier at this point after the last performance. So I don't know. What are your predictions, Jesse? What do you got for this one?
Yeah, I think Kentucky needs to really get it together. They've got to call better offensive plays. They have to look at their competition and figure out who they're playing. But oddly enough, even looking at just their records, these teams are, I hate to say it, pretty evenly matched at this point. So I'm going to pick Kentucky by a very small margin. I'm picking the Wildcats 28-24.
All right, Matt, what you got?
I think this is going to be Kentucky's bounce back game. This Kentucky team can go. They just had a really bad night against Tennessee. And to be fair, they were fighting outside their weight limit a little bit, I think. I think this is going to be Will Levis bouncing back, going to get some of that NFL stock back a little bit to this weekend. And although Vegas is only favoring the Cats by 2, I think they beat that spread. So I'm going to take Kentucky 33-14. I don't think Missouri's going to be able to keep up.
All right. So Mizzou's actually, this is so weird to say, they've actually looked pretty decent in a few games this year. Especially on the defensive side of the ball, I feel like they've really kind of held their own at times.
Defense is okay.
Yeah, defense is okay. That's the title of the episode. Defense is okay. They're at home. And I think Kentucky's reeling from that embarrassing loss. I got Mizzou winning this one 24-21. All right. Next is Florida.
I did not see you picking Missouri, Wes. I did not.
Yeah,
No.
it pains me, but I don't know. I just got a feeling. Florida at 4-4, at 1-4 in the SEC at Texas A&M, 3-5, 1-4 in the SEC. That is noon on ESPN. Florida's lost 2 games in a row, and A&M has lost a whopping 4 in a row. So both teams desperately trying to get back in the win column here. So I assume we'll see Connor Wigman start again. I mean, that seems to be the logical thing. Jesse, what is your prediction for Florida at A&M?
This is a tough one. I think if it were a night game in Kyle Field, I might pick it a little bit differently. But after the performance against Georgia, I think despite that it was a loss, that Florida is feeling a little bit encouraged. So I'm going to go with the Gators in another close one. And apparently I'm just choosing the score across the board, but picking the Gators 28-24.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and break from what Jesse said. I think A&M is going to win this ball game. You know, they need a win. And I think Jimbo realizes they've got to get a conference win. And I think Florida's probably going to provide the best opportunity for that. So I'm going to go ahead and say A&M wins this thing 28-21.
All right. Yeah, this is a game between 2 struggling teams. We already talked about that. I think Florida's got better players at some of the skill positions, such as Richardson. Obviously, I think he's pretty good. But let's not sell Wigman short as he continues on the job training, so to speak. A&M has the most overall talent, though. I think, they got all those 5 stars. So I think they win an overall sloppy game. I got A&M winning this one 31-24.
I like that pick, Wes.
Thanks. All right. Next is probably the biggest game of the season, of the regular season. That is Tennessee 8-0, 4-0 in the SEC at Georgia, 8-0, 5-0 in the SEC. That is 3:30 on CBS. One thing to note here that could be potentially big is Georgia just found out one of their defensive leaders, edge rusher Nolan Smith, is out for the rest of the season with the torn pectoral muscle suffered in the Florida game. Timeline for his return amid the NFL draft process is still fluid. So obviously, as we mentioned before, life is about more than just football. So hopefully he can get back to doing what he loves to do, and it's not affected long-term by that. Let's kind of break down some of the numbers here. We've talked a lot about offense and defense. Tennessee is number 1 overall with 553 yards per game in the total offense. Georgia's number 2 overall, 530 yards per game. Yards per play, Tennessee is number 3 overall. And when I say overall, I mean in the country. And at 7.4 yards per play, Georgia number 4 overall at 7.24 yards per play. Total defense, Tennessee is number 82 overall at 393.6 yards allowed per game. Georgia number 4 overall at 262 yards allowed per game. Scoring offense, Tennessee number 1, once again in an offensive stat, overall at 49.4 points per game. Georgia number 6 overall at 41.8 points per game. Scoring defense, Tennessee number 26 overall at 21 points allowed per game. Georgia number 2 overall at 10.5 points allowed per game. Look, I'm not going to continue, but you get the drift, right? Most of these stats mirror these similarities. Both of these teams being near the top of offensive stats, and Georgia with the edge on defensive stats. However, Georgia has not really played an offense like this yet this year. So with all those things in mind, Jesse, what is your prediction for this game?
Dude, I don't even know. I just put in a prediction. Like, I looked at all the notes earlier and I've been marinating on this and I'm so conflicted, but this is the game of the worst. For me as a Bama fan, not sorry.
Yeah.
I am gonna pick the Vols, and this is gonna be a close one, and it may even go to OT, honestly. I'm picking the Vols 38-35. They win by a field goal. It's in the last little bit. This is going to be a slugfest.
Okay. Matt, what do you got, my friend?
Wes, I'm probably gonna trigger you when I say this.
Triggered already.
I am very nervous about this game. because one of two things is going to happen. One, Tennessee's going to lay an egg, which is what I'm automatically defaulting to in my brain and making my peace with, because that's what life has been as a Tennessee fan for the past 20 years.
I
has been
empathize.
Tennessee laying an egg and not getting things done. However, I think that Tennessee has a legitimate chance to shock the world on this one. If things work properly, if the defense is able to get a couple of critical stops, if Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt and Jabari Small and all those guys are able to click along and execute and work like they're supposed to, I think this Georgia team can lose by 2 scores. I want to point out that this is a Georgia team that has played exactly one ranked opponent all season long, and that was Oregon in week 1. Since then, they've played Samford, South Carolina, Kent State, Missouri, Auburn, Vanderbilt, and Florida. None of those teams are good. The only one that's Midland would probably be Oregon and maybe Florida, but we saw what happened with Florida. So with that being said, I think Tennessee is going to come out early and they're going to score early. And I think this is going to be a game where Georgia's offense is going to have to play catch up. And I think that this is also going to be a situation where mistakes are going to happen, turnovers are going to happen. And I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and say Tennessee wins this thing 42-28.
All right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely, I'd say they've definitely got more than just a chance. You said they got a chance. I think it's definitely more than that. I think for Georgia, I think Tennessee being ranked number 1 is the absolute best thing that could have happened.
That definitely doesn't help
in terms of pumping them up. Yeah. Obviously, like we said, it's the biggest game for both of these teams. I feel you on the schedule. Obviously, the committee has made it known that they are not impressed with Georgia's resume so far. So obviously Tennessee is riding this high, hoping they've caught lightning in a bottle, much like the 2019 LSU team. Georgia still is not going to get a home night game. I don't know why we can't get one of those. CBS is insistent on keeping the 3:30 slot for this one, which I just don't understand. But I mean, I guess
thank goodness.
I guess
it's
ultimately
prime time. I mean,
yeah. I mean, I guess ultimately they're still going to get a ridiculous number of viewers regardless. So they don't really care from that standpoint, from a business standpoint. Coach Kirby Smart, who's typically quiet on Twitter, other than the occasional "Go Dogs" when a recruit commits to UGA, tweeted the following on Sunday. He said, "Saturday, we need Dog Nation to affect the game," with 2 exclamation points. "If you can talk when you leave, you didn't yell enough," with 2 more exclamation points. So I think he understands what's at stake here, with the loser having a much more difficult path to the playoff, if any path even exists. I think it's a little bit more difficult path for Georgia than Tennessee, just obviously judging by the committee rankings right now. Tennessee, to their credit, the environment at Neyland has been just insane this year. It's incredible, and I think really has propelled them to some amazing wins this year. So it'll be interesting to see how this road environment affects them. I don't know if you guys remember, but at the beginning of this season, Kirby said, "We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. We will be the hunters." And honestly, that was a little bit of prophecy, because I think he's right. I mean, we are having to be the ones doing the hunting right now. I think Georgia was the easy favorite in the East to start the season, but then this fell beast rises from the shadow of the East. Sorry, I've been reading a lot of Lord of the Rings. Thanks to Rings of Power.
I like that. That's good.
And now all of a sudden, people are kind of scared, and rightly so. I think we'll know. I think we're going to know about halfway through the first quarter if Georgia has a chance or not. If it's 14-0 Tennessee and Georgia's just gone 3 and out again, I think Georgia's essentially done, because I don't think we survive a shootout. I don't think that's in the resume right now. However, I will say we've been scoring a lot of points ourselves this year. So I do love the fact that all this hype seems to be centering around Tennessee's offense, and people are very quiet about Georgia's offense. I'm resigned. I've accepted the fact that there will be some big plays by Tennessee. I mean, that's just by default. I mean, it's just going to happen, right? There's really no way around it. But if Georgia can get stops on defense, I think we can actually use the tempo offense against Tennessee and tire their defense out. So currently Vegas, or at least the last time I looked, maybe it's changed since this afternoon, Vegas has Georgia by 8.5. I expect that number to continue to drop throughout the week. I think it'll be a close one, but I'm hoping the fans can give us the edge. I'm going with UGA 42-38.
Well, Good pick.
Regardless, as someone who has no literal dog in this fight, because y'all are both dogs, I'm just really happy that you both get Gary together. Just like together.
Speaking of spread, Wes, something I want to point out. I've always been a big proponent of the spread.
Yeah.
And good teams beat other teams, great teams beat the spread.
Right.
And this season, Tennessee is 7-1 against the spread.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got a good feeling.
I do not think that Georgia has fared that well, judging by the scores that I've seen.
I am curious what Georgia looks like against the spread. Hold on a moment.
Yeah, just thinking of the scores in my head, I'm guessing it's not even anywhere close to that.
Probably not that. It's probably like
maybe like half of that.
I would say 5-3.
They're 4-4 against the spread this season.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. Well, either way, I think it'll be a good one. And like I said, looking forward to it. All right, let's talk about Liberty at 7-1 at Arkansas 5-3. It's not like we're talking about this giant, huge game, right? And then, boo. All right. At Arkansas 5-3, 4:00 on the SEC Network. I don't really have any preview topics on this one. I don't know. I just think, obviously, Arkansas is expected to win, but I don't know. What do you guys think? Jesse, what is your prediction?
How fun for Hugh Freeze to come to the SEC. Yeah, I mean, Arkansas should take care of this one. I hope. They're at home. It's a non-conference opponent, a less competitive opponent, regardless of what their record shows. So I'm picking the Razorbacks 31-14.
All right, Matt.
This is a 7-1 Liberty team. Their only loss this season is a 37-36 loss to ranked number 19 Wake Forest. We know Hugh Freeze is a good football coach. He makes some questionable decisions when it comes to things
burner phones,
the cell phones. But I think this game's going to be a little bit closer than people are ready for. I think Arkansas probably got a little bit overinflated at the beginning of the season. We're starting to see those nicks in the armor, so to speak. So I think Liberty's going to give them a little bit of a scare, but Arkansas is going to come out on top. I'm going to say Arkansas wins this thing 20-10.
I tend to kind of agree with you, Matt. I think we see a close game at half, but then kind of depth becomes an issue for Liberty in the second half. I got Arkansas winning this one 38-24. All right, next Alabama at 7-1, 4-1 in the SEC at LSU. 6-2, 4-1 in the SEC. 7:00 on ESPN. As I said before, just like as a fan of college football, right? Like what an awesome day of games with Battle for the East at 3:30, Battle for the West, or at least one of them, because potentially more battles for the West are forthcoming at 7:00. So Jesse, what are your thoughts? What is your prediction on Bama at LSU?
I don't like playing in Death Valley at night, but here we are. Yeah, this is going to be an exciting one. Like you said, it's one of the battles for the West because we can't count out Ole Miss, but this is going to be a good one. So I hope that Bama realizes where we are in the season, that Bill O'Brien decides to show up for work and not be an idiot. Same with Pete Golding. And
tell us how you really feel.
Right? That was the tame version. I took out some expletives. But I think the tide rolls into Baton Rouge and I'm picking Bama 31-21. But I do think going into half, it's going to be a close one.
All right. Matt, what do you think?
I think that this Tennessee's played both these teams. Bama took Tennessee to the final second. LSU didn't really stand a chance against Tennessee. Just based off of what I saw out of both those teams, I'm going to have to pick Bama. I think Bama wins this thing. It's wide open. Bama wins 34-20. I think this is where LSU gets thrown back out of the top 10 as far as CFP goes.
Okay. Yeah, night game at Death Valley. I think this game is a little bit closer than people expect, maybe because of that. Expect the crowd to affect the game, I think, and Bama commits a lot of penalties. We've seen that before where that can be a factor, especially in hostile road situations. I think they overcome those, however, and win a close one. Bama winning 31-24. All right. Next, South Carolina at 5-3, 2-3 in the SEC. At Vanderbilt, 3-5, 0-4 in the SEC. At 7:30 on SEC Network. Two teams that are hard to figure out. Both teams seem to be on the rise in their respective sense, with Carolina being further along on that ascent, I think. But they both seem to take unexpected steps back. Jesse, what's your prediction for South Carolina at Vanderbilt?
Honestly, I went back and forth on this one. Who could say? I mean, who could say? I'm gonna pick the Gamecocks, but I'm not confident in this pick at all. But I'm gonna pick them 28-21. But Vandy could very well win their first SEC game.
Matt,
I'm gonna pick South Carolina.
I think Vandy's got it. I think this is a Carolina team that did not look good last week. I think they're still probably going to be trying to get over that A&M hangover. I like Vanderbilt here. I think Vanderbilt wins 21-20.
All right. Yeah, I think this is one of those weird ones. It's like a quiet night game in Nashville, right? South Carolina's, they got to be careful not to underestimate Vandy, but I think a loss last week will kind of help their focus a little bit. I'm going to South Carolina. How about, let's see, 31-21. All right. And then finally, Auburn at 3-5, 1-4 in the SEC at Mississippi State, 5-3, 2-3 in the SEC, 7:30 on ESPN2. So does Cadillac Williams get one of those feel-good wins, which by default means that Mike Leach manages to lose one of those games he should lose that we've kind of talked about before? Also interesting undertones to this game as Mississippi State's AD was just hired away by Auburn. Is he going to try to bring Leach over? I don't know. Jesse, what do you think? What are your predictions?
Yeah, on this one, I think with all of the players kind of having what I assume their head out of the game, looking into the transfer portal, there's a lot of turmoil down on the plains right now, and it's in Starkville. So I'm going to pick Mississippi State on this one. I think they cruise on by Auburn 31-13.
Okay. Matt, what do you got?
Yeah, I don't see Auburn getting this one out. So you're gonna Mississippi State winning. I don't think that Mississippi State's gonna beat the spread though. Spread on this game right now is 13, and I don't see that happening. So I'm gonna say Mississippi State wins 26-17.
Okay. So watch out for teams with interim head coaches that have nothing to lose. All right. I'm just saying.
That's fair.
I think Auburn's got their best game this season, which is just kind of funny. I think they're playing inspired football under Cadillac Williams, and they get a win here, an unexpected win, 28-24. So
how could you not under someone named Cadillac?
Right. I don't know. So obviously we've talked about these. What's the game to watch this week? What do you guys think?
It's Georgia, Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't going to assume. I know obviously LSU, Bama is big. I understand. So.
It is. It's a big one for the West. And as a Bama fan and as an LSU fan, you're keyed in on that one. But I think nationally, everyone's looking at Georgia, Tennessee, because that is truly going to tell you who's number one.
Yeah, and I think in the poll that means nothing. I think AP poll. This is only like the third time in the history of the AP poll. I think that teams 1 and 2, which in the AP Georgia and Tennessee are 1 and 2, have played each other. So that it just doesn't happen.
Careful in those games; they will break your heart.
Yes. So all right.
Was there? Never cleared out the stadium as fast as I did on that one.
Yeah, I could imagine. So, all right. Well, hey, that does it for the upcoming games, and that does it for this episode, because just talking about those things alone was enough to pack it full. So if you guys would like to contact us, please do so. Email us at pigskinsandpeasantry@gmail.com. We are at pigskinsandpeasantry on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. On Twitter, we are at PPSCC Podcast. Don't forget, we are available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and other podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. We're at Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, all that good stuff. Please check us out. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and review. Give us 5 stars. We'd love that. Increase our visibility, and we greatly appreciate that. So, hey, lots of really exciting games coming up. I'm excited for them. Yes, I am nervous as a Georgia fan, but also just as a college football fan, I'm excited to watch this weekend. So, hey, this is Wes. Until next time, go Dogs.
Y'all, we had a restful week, but let's honor our Lord and Savior, Nick Saban, after his birthday, and let's cruise on into Baton Rouge and beat those Tigers. Roll Tide.
Lord, I see what other people have, and I want that for me. Come on, Vols. We got to do this. It's the perfect opportunity. So go Tennessee. Hand it Heisman for Hooker or Hooker for Heisman. Botched. I screw that. Hooker for Heisman. Oh, that speaking of Hugh Freeze.
Oh gosh, I love it.